Hello and welcome to Body of Knowledge, where we believe that the body helps make knowledge. It is time for my July reading wrap up. Let's just get started. Do I want to just get started? No? Okay. My name is Jillian. I'm an anthropology student in a PhD program at California Institute of Integral Studies. Great. Got that out of the way. Reading wrap-up time. The other thing I feel like I have to get out of the way is it's kind of later than I usually do these. I had a class that got postponed till later in the week. So I'm like, oh, I have to do this video. But the lighting in my office at night sucks. So since I don't have other lights, I just lit some candles to try to warm things up. Okay. I feel like I've got the nonsense out of my system, and now we can begin. Okay. First book up, House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas. I might take back what I said before that I want to talk about these books. The short of it is, like, if you've seen those memes that are mostly making fun of people on the right, and it's like someone on the right, like a hardcore Republican, will post something like healthcare for all, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I can't remember. But if you've seen it, you know. And then the meme is like, oh my God, you almost got it. Yes, healthcare should be a human right. Oh my God, you're so close. That's how I feel about pretty much all of Sarah J. Maas's writing. It's just like, oh, you're so close. But then it devolves into liberalism. It's just some of the most bizarre things. I'm talking not just about this book, but about her writing as a whole. But like in this book, slavery exists, and it's just that liberal idea, that white liberal idea, that if you follow the rules, everything will be okay. And even to the point of like, well, guess you're a slave. That's just the way it is. Yeah. I'm still reading them, but it's frustrating. And also I feel like it's, since I reframed them like this and pinpointed why it is that I get frustrated with these books, I feel like I have a little bit more patience for them. And again, what fiction can do that white paper in a journal cannot do is give more of that embodied feeling of what does it mean to be alive in this specific culture. So in some ways it's valuable in that way. Plus, you know, fairy smut. We get around to that eventually. So that's nice. Next up, A World Appears by Michael Pollan. I waited for this one at the library for several months, and I had a sticky note that said, A World Appears, Michael Pollan. And then I wrote the note, panpsychism. I don't know, I had read a review somewhere saying that this book would talk about that, and it mentions it, but that's not really the point of the book. The point of the book is like, we don't really know what consciousness is. And the more, it seems like the more we find out, the less we know, type of things. I liked it. I listened to that one at the beginning of July, so honestly, it's kind of faded from my memory. I'm trying to think if there's anything specific that I loved about it. I think just the biggest thing I like about Michael Pollan's writing is how accessible he's able to make seemingly hard concepts. And I like looking at these kind of journalist research pieces as inspiration, because I don't want to write just for other scholars. I want to write for everyone and everyone who's interested. And so it's inspiring in that way. I liked the book. I remember thinking that I wanted to get a physical copy to go through and find some quotes. Then I don't remember what they were about. It's been like a month. So great. Final point. I liked it. Okay. 51 on my list. No, yeah. 51 on my list. La Belle Sauvage by Philip Pullman. This is both it's a part of a series, a trilogy that is both a prequel and follow-up, I can't remember the word, to the Golden Compass trilogy, which came out. I remember reading that when I was a kid, so it's been out for a while. This is a fairly new series. I think all of the books are out, so it can't be that new, but I didn't realize he had a new book out, so I listened to La Belle Sauvage, and again, it's like that point about what can fiction do that nonfiction can't do. A world appears, and La Belle Sauvage are both in their own ways about consciousness, but the fiction piece gives something that the nonfiction piece can't. The imagination, the magical realism, the way that Philip Pullman is able to externalize the right brain. I think, well, probably people have different articulations of what the demon is to the human, but externalizing a part of our consciousness, giving it its own unique personality, allowing real dialogue to happen rather than this kind of like internal monologue. And then how does society react to that? How does society try to control that? It's harder to control in this world where this part of the self is not embodied in the self, but is external. Also, like House of Sky and Breath, huge political overtones that are more in alignment with my politics, let's say. So from that perspective, I enjoyed this series more. I feel really inarticulate today, so I'm sorry about that. I don't know if I'm making sense at all. So I'll just preface that if I'm not. Okay. Then I read this Summer War by Naomi Novik. This was, I think, a novella audiobook and a short story. It was good. Again, I'm like, when did I read this? I like Naomi Novik, what I've read of her before. Yeah, it was interesting. If you have time for a short read, I'd recommend it. Oh my god, my memory of what I read last month is dead. Maybe I should have reminded myself before I started recording this. It is what it is. It was entertaining. It is fantasy. It is short. So if you, and talks a little bit about the power of our words, the power of societal expectations and the damage that they can cause. And yeah, so I think that's it about that. Matter and Desire by Andreas Weber. The subtitle is An Erotic Ecology. I haven't been this excited about a book in a really, really, really long time. There's something about how Andreas Weber looks at Eros, at the erotic, which is similar to, in a lot of ways, to how Audre Lorde looks at the erotic. And when I read so many years ago the uses of the erotic is power, I would feel like I was similarly excited about that piece, but it's much shorter. It's a short essay compared to a full book. What I like about Andreas Weber's articulation of the erotic, first of all, it's a book, so he has longer to explore what it is. Second, it's less anthropocentric. We're starting with more of what we think of when we think of the natural world, like nature outside of us. And then he quickly brings in, like, we're part of nature too. And in this articulation of the erotic, we're acting on our yearnings, our desires for relationality. It's a much more liberatory view of life than kind of the, what is his name, like Steven Pinker version of like kill or be killed type thing. So I liked that book so much that I'm wanting to do a slow reading of it. Maybe with myself, I'm going to host an in-person book club here in my town to get people to read it. In the last 2 days, I've had 2 friends message me pictures that their books have come in the mail because I've been so excited about this book and they bought it. And one of them will be able to come to the book club. So I just am so excited about it, and I want to know what people think, and I want to open up conversations. So I'm having the in-person one, and then I think I'm also going to do a digital one to open up the conversation wider than in my immediate sphere in rural Vermont. So I'm thinking both will start in September. There's something else I wanted to say. The reading groups as a way to read them slowly. So the course I took on Gertian phenomenology this summer, we had 4 Zoom classes. I missed one. But in the second one, after we had already done our introductions, we had an assigned reading. And then in the 2-hour class, we revisited that reading and we read it slowly, line by line, pausing whenever and wherever and for however long it wanted to be to have conversation about what emerged, thoughts or questions about the text. And I don't know how many people are in that class, like maybe 9 or 10. I don't know. We didn't, it's like a 2-hour class, and we didn't even get around to everyone in the circle reading once. And yet the conversation was so rich and engaging. And so that's how I'm thinking about approaching these reading groups, is that you don't have to read. If you want to read, if that makes you feel like you have a better understanding of the idea, that's welcome. But in order to attend, you don't need to read beforehand, which I think will be helpful in a society where everyone is so busy and stressed out. And also, if you miss a session, it's like, just read this paragraph and you'll be caught up to us. So it just feels like a lower stress way to engage with a powerful text that gives the text itself its due. So I'm excited about this book so much. I'm excited about talking about it with other people. I really think that this book, and then just this summer as a whole, have been so helpful for shaping the trajectory of my research in a way that I think will have an impact for quite a long way. I've been struggling with research questions and thesis questions. I'm not really a person that asks a lot of questions all the time. I'm more like to engage and witness and just kind of absorb what is happening. And that is sometimes a problem. Sometimes I end up in situations I don't want to be in because I didn't ask any questions. And it's also been a question or a problem rather in school because, oh my God, the number of times that I'm asked, what is your research question? And I try so hard to answer that because in some cases I have to. And it feels like pulling teeth. It feels deadening to me. But this book in a combination with another, so I'm just going to skip ahead. The other one is Mysticism by Simon Critchley, which was recommended by one of my school friends. Those two texts, plus the Nature Institute, plus some other things going on, helped me figure out. I've been asking myself, what is my question? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have a question. Leave me alone. But finishing that phenomenological portrait that I talked about last week, all of these other things happening, it made me realize what it is that I have been discovering. So where's my, 1 second. Okay, so this also gets to be a little bit of an update on my comprehensive exam. What I posted about your dissertation is alive, and trying to connect to something that felt vital. I decided to just step away from books and all of the things and just to do some journaling so I had the 2 ideas. I am the earth and the earth is me, and then erotic ecology, because I was so excited by the Andreas Weber book. And so just journaling what's the overlap between these two, what's drawn me to these 2 ideas. Can I find the underlying thing that is what matters to me? And what I realized largely from reading this book, the book starts with this quote, quoting someone else. Mysticism is experience in its most intense form. That's Simon Critchley quoting Evelyn Underhill. And that really spoke to me. And so thinking, what is it that I'm trying to discover? Or what is it that I have been discovering? What are the little glimmers, the little fireflies that are like guiding me through the dark woods? And I came up with this. There is a way of being in which life feels more intensely alive, and accessing that aliveness changes everything else. And so if I have to have a question, it would be, how do we access that aliveness? And on the surface, that seems kind of like a dumb question, right? We're all alive, except are we? Just thinking of how many times we're not actually present, how many times we're trying to avoid life experience in the name of productivity and capitalism, or just being really depressed. Like I have been so depressed before that I feel totally numb inside and totally disconnected from life, or dissociated to where I'm like going around and living my life, but then, chunks of time where I don't have memories because I was so dissociated. So what helps you feel alive? what helps you access your eros, your life force. So I just think that those two, so many things, not just those two books, but those two books in particular, I can look at ways in particular that they have helped shape the direction that I want to go in. So I'm just going to skip to this one, Mysticism by Simon Critchley, and read this quote that I loved so much. Mysticism is a tradition of thought that has been under-acknowledged by philosophy, a tradition that is intimate, personal, affective, visionary, embodied, autobiographical, and substantially maintained by women. And reading that line just helped validate me so much and made me realize that I think it helped me realize my frustration with some of the criticisms about things like autoethnography. What is it? Heuristics, I think is the other one. Clark Mustakas, maybe. Anyways, like if you focus on yourself, you're navel gazing. It's not rigorous, it's not substantial. And those who often want to do that kind of writing are often women. So that felt like in some ways like you could just trade out mysticism for like autoethnography. Autoethnography is a tradition of thought that has been under acknowledged by philosophy. Just like finish that sentence. But one thing that I like about this book, in some ways, it feels like it can also be a manual for writing. Something that's really well done autoethnography, or really well done memoir, or really well done mysticism does is it doesn't focus so much on I as the individual. Rather, it's kind of about the individuation process. How does that relate to larger aspects of community or society or institutions or theology? And it becomes bigger than the self. The seat is the self's experience, but he talks explicitly how many of these mystics have tried to remove themselves from the writing, even as they're writing about their own experience. So they're always thinking, how is this greater than the small I? So I liked that a lot. And getting that really concise definition of mysticism helped. And now we're just sidetracked. But I want to finish talking about this before I get on to how many other books do I have? It'll all be time stamped. Okay, there are 2 other books. But I'm excited about this. I'm going to talk about this. So all of this came together. I'm sitting with this, and I realized what excited me so much about erotic ecology is that it is circling and indeed part of what it is that I've been circling and discovering, which I've decided to call erotic cosmology. So erotic, again, not as sex or only sex, but as this, in the Audre Lorde sense, source of discernment and knowledge and power. And then in the Andreas Weber sense, and also in the Lord's sense, all about relationality and life. So erotic, and then cosmology as more than ecology, as really the underlying assumptions of the world. And another big thing that happened this week is I realized that I'm just not interested in convincing people that our bodies matter. Like, I'm not a confrontational person. I don't enjoy debates. And I just don't really want to get into the academic minutia of what for me is an axiom, which is to say that my consciousness is embodied. Without my body, I wouldn't have this consciousness. So I'm not really interested in arguing with people about that or proving that or anything like that. That is a huge step as a somatic anthropologist to say, like, that's just not going to be my research. But there's so many people doing that research already. It's fine. Like, I love them. It took me so far. It took me to where I am now, and it's just not where I want to sit. I want to sit with this idea of aliveness and accessing more aliveness through my body, because I access the world and life through the body because I have a body. So just taking that as an axiom and moving forward in my research is really important. And also, probably because I was reading this book, but also and maybe last month or something, I was like, oh, I really want to do a deep dive into Saint Hildegard of Bingen's concept of veriditas, of greening. And so I actually have a research question that formed naturally, organically, for my comprehensive exam. So first I want to set up, what do I mean by erotic cosmology? And then the research question is, what was Hildegard of Bingen's erotic cosmology? How does her philosophy, her writing, her art, her creation, how does that help me better understand erotic cosmology? So focusing in on one person feels like something that I can do. I don't have that much time now. I'm so grateful that I started this process so early, because the time is just passing by so quickly, and my goal is to get the first complete draft done in 6 weeks. So still having to do the reading for Hildegard and then the writing, but several books plus experiences plus so many things helped me get to this point. Okay, so I don't feel like it's changing the comprehensive exam as a whole, just rather the orientation perhaps. Or maybe I'm lying to myself. That's also possible. The other book I read, there's 2 left. One is A River Alive by Robert McFarland. And I really enjoyed this one. Again, it's like that anthropological research, but from a different lens. In some ways, I could think of it as an activist ethnography. Robert McFarland being an activist, interviewing co-researchers, looking at his different field sites. So interesting, so illuminating, sometimes a little depressing for sure, just the way our planet is treated, especially by those in power, but also conveying his love for these rivers, and just getting, I thought he did a really good job of characterizing the people in his book, if that makes sense. They felt like distinct people, and it really felt like I was immersed. And so I liked that as an example of how to write ethnography, even if he doesn't consider it an ethnography. And it also helped inspire the playlist for my phenomenological portrait on the Whetstone Brook. And then the last book, No Spiritual Surrender by Klee, Benally. I was trying to think of how to explain this book. In some ways, it's kind of like, what is it? By Adrienne Marie Brown, Loving Corrections by Adrienne Marie Brown. And this metaphor is only going to work for some people. But if you read tarot or oracle cards, there's this kind of joke that the oracle cards are like the benevolent grandmother giving you kindly advice. And the tarot cards are like, listen, bitch, this is what's up. And so Loving Corrections is the oracle deck, and No Spiritual Surrender is the tarot deck. Just no nonsense, calling people out by name, talking about the problems, talking about getting out of the idea that being spiritual means always being nonviolent, always being accepting, always being detached from the outcome. And like sometimes being spiritual also means being a warrior, standing up to systems of oppression, of course, standing up to those in power who want to destroy our planet, but also standing up to harms happening within our communities themselves. And so being self-critical as well. Yeah, and I liked it. I don't know that I'll use any of it in any of my writing, but it is a good, solid reminder of why this work matters, why this sacred matters, why the earth matters. Yeah, sometimes that can get lost getting into the more mystical aspects of things, but it's for a greater purpose. And so that book, No Spiritual Surrender, was helpful for that. Okay. If that was nonsensical as a whole, I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. All right. Yeah, for the comp, I'm throwing out everything that I thought before. I have to turn in a syllabus, but I've talked to other students who have gone through their comps and said, yes, this can change. It's like a roadmap. The roadmap can change. You can take a different route. You can end up at a different direction or location. So just trying to relieve the stress of that. That doesn't have to be perfect. And then just writing down my notes as they arise. I'm listening to a book called Green Mass by someone with the last name that starts with an M. Murder, maybe. I don't know where it is. Just, yeah, taking notes as I go and just creating not a nonsense document, but a very disorganized document as I'm doing my reading. And then I'll go back later and find what's the arc, what's the story that wants to be told here related to that question. What is the erotic cosmology of Hildegard? So that's what I'm going to be doing this coming week. All right. Until next time. Ciao.